Welcome back to the BTS Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Andrea. With me, as always, is Morgan.
Hey, what's up?
According to one exclusive report, BTS have allegedly set July 9th as a date for the release of their comeback album. Prior to the release of Butter back in May, BTS told fans they were working on an album full of new songs, including Butter, expected for release sometime this year. On June 9th, a representative of Big Hit Music responded to media outlet reports which claimed that BTS planned a comeback in July. According to Big Hit Music, we typically reveal official dates once they are confirmed. So they don't want to say if that's true or not, but it seems like the timing is right for an album to come out in July because by then Butter has kind of cycled through and we've gotten all the remixes, and it's good timing to have an album in the summer, I think, because then you can just keep releasing more songs for the rest of the year.
Right. I mean, well, it wasn't just going to be a single, so
yeah,
they were always going to come out with an album, obviously.
And we only knew that the next thing they had planned was the Japan album, which is June, and so it makes sense July. Okay, they're going to have new music ready because the Japan album is mostly the same songs from before, just like Japanese versions.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense that that's the timing. They just don't want to confirm that. And it's also good timing because if you're a fan of like other groups at Hybe, like TXT or Hypen or whatever, like they've released their albums already. So that's going to be an open slot for BTS. And yeah, I think it makes sense. It's good timing for a summer album. So I look forward to that. And I'm pretty sure that July is like they don't have a schedule beyond whatever they're doing in June, like all the Festa stuff and a couple other appearances that we know about. So it definitely makes sense, a July album.
Well, is it going to be all English? No, right?
They
just do the one song.
There's no details about it, and so I wouldn't think it's all English. I think probably just Butter is going to be all English and maybe one or two other songs if they wanted to, but I don't think they try to do all English songs that much.
Yeah, unfortunate. Not that I think they should do only... It's just they should capitalize while... I talked about this before. They should capitalize while they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think since Butter did so well, maybe that will cause more interest in their next releases. A representative in the South Korean parliament, I don't know if that's the word they use, parliament, made headlines as she posted various photos of BTS Jungkook on her social media, along with the announcement that she's drafting legislation called the Tattoo Act. So she wrote up a long article that started with the statement, "Take the bandages off BTS." And she's referring to when, they're on TV and they have to cover up all of his tattoos with like band-aids or long sleeves or whatever it is. And she's like, that shouldn't be happening on Korean broadcasts. Like, let people just show their tattoos. And it's more accepted in modern days, what she's trying to say. And I think another part of it is her trying to regulate the industry and get it more legalized, and then so that you can tax these people, the tattoo artists, and they can operate, legally. Like, she wants to make that a normal system, like what we have in the U.S., whatever that is. Mm-hmm. It's like, I guess you have to be licensed, whatever, to be a tattoo artist, take certain training, and to have legal shops open. Like, there it's still totally illegal, which is really...
I don't think it's totally legal. Can't, specially licensed people do it? Right?
Maybe there's exceptions. I think
they need, a medical license or something.
Yeah, maybe right now it's just very difficult to do that legally, and so most of them are not doing it legally. And so I think she's trying to challenge the Korean government to be more modern and look at tattoos in the way that it's looked at in the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if South Korea is really ready for all that, but I guess she's the youngest member in the government, so she's trying to move forward with that.
Obviously, I, as an American, I agree. We don't think tattoos are a big deal. Certainly don't think they need to be censored on TV. But you're treading in dangerous waters there because you don't know culturally what Korea is like, how how popular is this opinion in Korea, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to speak for another culture and say, oh yeah, you guys should just be okay with tattoos. From my perspective, like, well, your perspective might be different.
Yeah.
You know, that's our cultural perspective. It's dangerous to project onto others, but they might be ready for it as well. I can't imagine that tattoos are that big of a deal. I don't know, they might be.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably time for them to, you know, they don't have to embrace it whole cloth like the way we do in the United States, but I think it's okay to show people on TV who have them.
Right.
There's no reason really to censor that. Like, maybe I think the argument that, oh, it's gonna promote degeneracy in Korean society. I don't know about that. Does anyone really believe that? If people in Korea don't even really believe that, then they probably should change the law. If tons of people still do believe that in Korea, then okay, fine. Then this law is appropriate for your culture, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure they even believe that.
Yeah, it does seem like that aspect of it to where, oh, you can't even show your tattoos on broadcast television. That seems a little bit behind the times just because, they have internet. They can see all sorts of shows from all over the world. They can see people's tattoos everywhere on what they're consuming. So it just seems like kind of small at this point that,
they know that Jungkook has them. They just look at media on the internet and they can see it. It's not like it's a secret, right?
Right.
So what does the law achieve at the end of the day? I would argue nothing. And if the law achieves nothing, then probably is time for it to go. Like, even if you very strongly still believe that seeing tattoos increase the degeneracy in the nation's youth, well, censoring it on TV no longer even prevents them from seeing it because there's a thing called the internet. So even if you do believe that, the law still is not effective for what you want it to be.
Right.
When laws are no longer effective, they may as well not exist.
I think
you should create a different law.
It could be a generational thing because this woman is like a very young representative, and it's probably the older generations are who's in charge of the network standards. So maybe there's a difference there in the culture. And another thing is that Army, some people criticized her, like they agree with her points. Like, yes, this is a very good cause. Let's try to, make it more accepted to see tattoos on people and not shameful and not have a stigma about it. Like, they agree with her points, but they didn't really like that she used like Jungkook as her like poster boy for all that. It's like she posted his picture like on her Instagram and everything. It's like, well, maybe he doesn't want to be like known for this law or whatever. He's just like doing his thing, and like, why did you put the focus on him? Like, there's other idols and other people that have tattoos too. Like, there's G-Dragon, there's like, many other people. I guess they don't want like any negative attention to come to him. Like, oh,
nothing's gonna happen to him because of this.
No, but
is
like,
he gonna get arrested or something? No.
Let's say this becomes a really polarizing issue in like the government or whatever, and it's like they're just using his picture like all over the place and like news reports and stuff.
Well, I mean, but this is, you're a celebrity, right? And it's effective on her part. It's effective strategy.
Yeah.
You always use the most popular, the most notable person or thing to illustrate your point, right? You don't use something obscure to illustrate your point. And he's the most famous guy with tattoos right now.
Everybody loves BTS. So if that's your example, then it's like, wait, I don't want to do something that's against BTS.
This is just it's just effective politics. And she's certainly breaking no law by using him as an example. He's a public figure. He can be talked about. Yeah. Right? So
I do think
I don't agree with that. She's under no obligation not to talk about him. And if she successfully lobbies for this new law, then it probably helps him out. He doesn't have to wear those stupid bandages anymore, right? I'm sure he would like that. Mm-hmm. So she's leveraging and using his notoriety. He's the best example of this, and maybe the most sympathetic example, right? Right. To change this law. And at the end of the day, that will benefit him and other artists that have tattoos. I doubt he's against it, is my point. So for fans to be protective over him, there's really no need.
I think it's a pretty effective strategy that she's using. I don't know if this has a good chance or not, but it's definitely making some waves. But at the same time, don't try to aspire to U.S. levels of tattoo acceptance. Like here, like way too many people have them, and then.
Well, you can aspire to whatever you want, but I think it's just dangerous for people in the United States to, project our cultural values onto Koreans and say, of course, you guys are so backwards. You should accept tattoos. Of course you should. Well, yeah, in our point of view, yeah, they should. And maybe they're even ready to, but don't assume that as a culture they're ready to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if it passes, then that means they were ready. Then enough people voted for that. So we've all been enjoying the BTS meal at McDonald's. It's been out a few weeks now. We've had it a couple times in different McDonald's, so that promotion is definitely working out well. Some countries didn't get the full experience, but that's okay because we still got the food and we liked it. But there's someone else who's angry and talking about BTS in connection with that, and that's PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which I didn't even realize they were still like around doing stuff, but they're protesting BTS because the nuggets are made of chicken, obviously, and they are accusing BTS of animal cruelty because they're partnering with McDonald's and chickens have to be killed to make nuggets. And
yes, correct.
They feel that that's cruelty.
Right.
But I think that's pretty ridiculous.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, yes, I guess it is cruelty to just straight up kill animals for food. But on the other hand, most of the planet is complicit in this, and we've dealt with it. We're at peace with that, right?
Right.
If you eat meat, I would hope that you understand where that meat comes from. Mm-hmm. I hope you understand that it involves an animal having to die, right? And oftentimes not in ideal conditions. So if you're not comfortable with that, you should stop eating meat. Most of us still eat meat, though.
Yeah.
So as insofar as BTS is complicit in animal cruelty, according to that logic, yes, they are. But also according to that logic, most of the planet is. So what is special or different now, right?
Yeah.
It's just clout chasing from PETA, and the BTS name is going to be used this way in a lot of different instances, right?
Yeah.
They know that it will just get generate more clicks if they talk about BTS.
Yeah, this is definitely an example of clout chasing.
Like, they didn't have to wait till they promoted McDonald's. They could just say they're not vegetarians, so they promote animal cruelty. Yes, technically true. Like, they eat meat, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure those guys have been to a Korean barbecue or 20, right? So they do, as do I, as do you, as does anyone who's not a vegetarian, right?
They eat meat all the time, and McDonald's has had nuggets for however many decades,
right.
Like, why didn't you guys protest sooner? It's like, what does BTS having a meal that had chicken McNuggets have to do with that? They didn't start anything.
Although I think PETA as an organization is pretty stupid and hypocritical in a lot of ways. You can look into that if you want to. They have some really questionable policies as it relates to animals. But, I think they're totally anti-pet.
Yeah, they don't think anyone should own pets.
And they, euthanize pets sometimes just because they're, philosophically against that.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. Look into it. Just do your own research. But it is hard to argue that it's not cruel to animals to just slaughter them for meat. We don't have to eat them. So I guess we could technically all be vegetarians. This is a more nuanced, complex issue than that, though. Even if you're a straight up vegetarian or vegan, the process by which your food comes to exist also kills lots of animals and animal habitats, by the way. Mm-hmm. All of the things you eat, you might say, well, I eat vegetables. But how are those vegetables farmed, right? They clear land for farms. This clears out ecosystems. It changes things. It kills animals. It makes some animals extinct. All these things happen because you ate your food, right? The only way for you to really not have an impact on the ecosystem is for you to just kill yourself right now.
Yeah, if you don't.
And I don't think anybody's wanting to do that. I'm not asking anyone to do that. So the inevitable truth is that you will have some sort of impact on the ecosystem. That's the more nuanced, true answer. But at the same time, yeah, it's certainly cruel to kill something, but it's cruel when lions kill things, and we're omnivores,
Yeah.
The circle of life is filled with, I think people should just understand that nature is filled with things that in a civilized society are considered cruel. Mm-hmm. And we can either accept that or do our best to not participate in that. But even when you do your best, you may not avoid all those aspects. Like I said, even if you're just eating vegetables, there were animals that were hurt or impacted by that. Just trust me. Okay? It didn't come out of like the sky or I don't know, like a Star Trek replicator or something like that, right? Your food came from somewhere and things were impacted to produce that food. Animals were impacted. Like I think about that sometimes because when you eat something, you should try to remember it came from an animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you wonder, well, if I had to kill this animal in the wild, could I do it?
Yeah.
A lot of people in modern day society couldn't.
Modern day people.
Like
no.
you love eating pork. You love eating baby back ribs. But if I told you to go in your backyard and put a spear into a pig, could you do it?
Like look in its eyes.
Yeah, it's like kill it right now.
Can you do that?
Could you do it? No, you probably couldn't.
I couldn't. I would
No.
have to just go.
And so,
vegan.
yeah, that there's a certain amount of a certain amount of hypocrisy in that. I agree with animal rights people in a lot of ways. There's a certain amount of hypocrisy, and if you couldn't do that, should you really be eating that animal? There's a good argument to say you shouldn't, right? So it's not a black and white issue. PETA is not like 100% wrong on this, but at the same time, nothing BTS does is increasing the amount of meat consumption in the world. I can almost guarantee you that.
No.
So
they shouldn't even be.
It's not an issue.
Part of this conversation. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of technology right now with plant-based meats that they're doing really well with developing stuff that mimics animal protein. So I mean, in the future, we may not even have to kill animals anymore and at all, and it'll be like exactly the same thing. But I mean, we're not quite there yet. So
well, even that, like I said though, like when you eat plants, where did those plants come from? From a farm. Mm-hmm. When you cleared the land for that farm, were animals impacted?
Yeah, some animals were.
Yeah, so
whatever lived there.
Yeah, maybe fewer animals were impacted than just a straight up factory farm, but it's not fair to say that you as a vegetarian did not impact the lives of any animals. That's not accurate either.
And then the fact they're accusing BTS of animal cruelty, the way chickens are slaughtered is probably as humane as it can be, because I've actually observed in a chicken
it's really quick
center
right
what
it's really
they do.
quick.
I mean, it's still like troubling to watch, but it's like they do it as quick as possible. Right. And okay, the chicken is,
one moment you're alive, next moment you're dead.
Yeah, it's like the best we can do, and like that's what we can do as humans, is just be as humane as possible.
Right. I agree. I think it's pretty humane. I've seen it's pretty humane as long as it's very quick and painless.
But yeah, I think PETA, the problem with them is that they just go for like the easy publicity stunt, and they don't really work towards activism that is actually helping animals. They're just like flashy and like kind of pointless. Mm-hmm. And
they're one of the worst animal advocacy
groups.
Don't
support them. If you want to help animals, there's much better organizations. Mm. Also in world news, Jong Un in North Korea has decided he wants to crack down on K-pop in North Korea. He says that it is a vicious cancer, and if you're caught with the music, that you might face 15 years hard labor and possible execution. Mm-hmm. So the reason we know about this is because there were some internal documents that were smuggled out of North Korea, and then they were made public by South Korean legislators and then reported in newspapers, including the New York Times. So Jong Un is very against K-pop all of a sudden and wants to impose these really harsh punishments. Like you can't even be caught singing those songs or speaking them or like writing down lyrics or anything like that. And you definitely can't be distributing music. Like if you're one of those people, that's going to be execution. I kind of wonder like what happened all of a sudden that he is very anti-K-pop, because remember at one point they were trying to bond with South Korea, I guess, and have a cultural exchange, and Red Velvet went to North Korea and performed, and it's like he was trying to be open to that. And
well, but they performed for him.
Yeah.
That wasn't for the common people of North Korea. That's different.
I guess the regular citizens, if they are too into K-pop, then that's not a good sign if you're a dictator and you're trying to control people.
Yeah, well, the answer, I think, is obvious. It's a state built on information control. And just in case you're not familiar with how things work there, they gaslight their citizens to such a point where they tell them things like Kim Jong-il invented golf, or hit a like hole in one like 18 times in a row and was Jesus Christ and invented the plane and the automobile or something. I'm not even joking. This is stuff that people are taught in North Korea.
Remember they told them that their film studios created Toy Story?
Yeah, they just straight up lie to them. They gaslight them and they've been telling them that people in South Korea have been living in poverty and it's so bad over there. You know, if you think it's bad here, it's even worse in South Korea. Of course, the opposite is true. South Korea has been a booming economy for the past 30 years, and North Korea has been starving. I mean, the most startling evidence of this is when you take satellite pictures from space, and every industrialized nation is lit up with lights because they have lights at night, because they have electricity, and homes have lights. That's really, really normal for a modern country, right? Except North Korea. It's dark over there. You know why? Because it's living in poverty. The only people who live well are, the elites, right? So they keep their population under control by controlling the amount of the information that they have. They tell them that South Korea is a terrible place and that people are suffering, and look at how our glorious communist state is, and look at how garbage the South Korean state is. Mm-hmm. That only works if you don't let people know what's actually going on in the world, right?
Yeah.
If they have access to information like K-pop, they're going to question whether or not these things are true. And they're going to say, why are we living here? Maybe we should try to escape. So this is bad for a totalitarian state like this.
Yeah, and you might think, oh, it's just music. Like, who cares what music people are listening to? But, like, you can get a lot of messages through music if you look at lyrics
culture
and slang.
Culture is infectious, It's viral. It's really difficult to stamp that out. And once people get a hold of it and understand it, they understand what's really going on. And that's dangerous. That's why this is such a severe penalty. It is a threat. You may think, well, why are they doing this? How's this threatening to you? It is very threatening to them.
Yeah.
It is very threatening to them.
Like, if you're a BTS fan, you know that a lot of times some of their music has some bigger messages. And it's like, they don't want people to, like, love themselves or speak themselves or, question authority. Like, there's a lot of BTS songs that are talking about stuff like that. And it's like, okay, North Korea, their songs are all about how amazing the family is, like, and how they invented everything. It's like, those are their songs.
Not to get too political, but if you ever have any questions about the debate between communism and capitalism, just know that fundamentally there's not much difference between North Korea and South Korea. They're all Koreans, okay? The people are all the same. The land is roughly the same. One is struggling in abject poverty, and the other one is one of the best places to live on Earth. And what is the difference? Mm-hmm. Their form of government and their economy, right? Their form of economy. Those are the only two differences. There's nothing different about the weather. There's nothing different about the natural resources, and there's nothing different about the people. They're all Korean. And yet, this one divergence in choice, it's produced vastly different results. Just keep that in mind. And if you want to learn more about just sort of how things work and why this sort of information control is so important to the North Korean government, there was a really good book written by Yeonmi Park. It was called In Order to Live. It was about a woman who escaped from North Korea, right? Just read that and you'll have a better understanding about how much control they exerted over the way people thought and why that's so important. Mm-hmm. Why that's so important and why it's so important to not let people control how you think. People may say it's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal. And authoritarian governments have known it's a big deal and they've exercised control over that, right? And disturbingly enough, not to go on too wild of a tangent, but disturbingly enough, this woman who escaped from North Korea, she went to Columbia University in the United States at some point. And she said that Columbia University reminded her of North Korea. Let that sink in that she thinks that one of our best universities reminds her of North Korea, which is a really scary thought. And these days, they try to control the way you think. I would recommend reading the book. It's an eye-opener in a lot of ways. So if you want to understand sort of why this policy makes sense for the North Korean regime. It makes sense for them to want to control what people are thinking.
Yeah. Kim Jong Un must have noticed that there's more free thought happening, and he he's blaming K-pop. Who knows if that's the fault. I read somewhere in this article that said, a lot of the defectors, they said they frequently listen to K-pop. So clearly it's getting through somewhere.
It starts with culture. It starts with a cultural awakening that, wow, perhaps things are better on the outside. Perhaps my government is lying to me. It all starts there. And once that takes hold, once that germinates, it's very difficult to control. And if anything, authoritarian governments are good at, they're good at understanding that, right?
Right. So there's an article that is focusing on BTS fans and blaming them for ruining the system of charting. So writer for Stereo Gum, Tom Brehan, wrote an article blaming BTS Army for manipulating the system. The article starts by recapping BTS's success with Dynamite, which he felt was genuine success. And then they released Savage Love Remix and Life Goes On and the B album. And then with Butter, he was saying that it's not the most popular song in America right now. It's just that the fans have boosted it up with the digital sales and, everything they're doing with streaming and radio play. Like, he doesn't think it's actually the most popular song, just that the fans are doing the most to move it up on Billboard. And, whatever formula they're using, the fans are maximizing what they can do with it. So he doesn't feel like Butter should get all the credit, I guess, for being number one. And he talked about, we know that how Army works. And, when something comes out, everybody's posting about it, tweeting about it. And it's like, hey, everybody buy the single or stream it or, whatever you can do. They even have groups that collect donations and then they distribute it to people. And then, more people can buy the singles. So he's saying, like, that's manipulation. Right. That's wrong. Right. And he doesn't feel like it's reflecting what's accurately popular on the charts.
Okay. I read his article. What do you think?
I don't know if he's clout chasing. I think he actually thinks that.
No, I don't think he's clout chasing.
He's wrong, but I don't think he was trying to just, like, get attention, because he's just one of those, like, critics that's, what BTS is doing is, like, too popular and there's something wrong with that and he doesn't like the system. But it's like,
well, his argument is not too popular. It's not genuinely popular, right? Yeah. Like, it's not organically popular or legitimately popular, right? That's his argument.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things wrong with his argument, but let's get straight what his argument actually is. His argument is that it perverts the charts because they're not organically and genuinely as popular as the Army and the stands have made them to look through various manipulations, correct? Right? So that's his argument. There's a couple things wrong with it, and other people have pointed this out. Number one, there have been manipulation. These charts have been manipulated by record labels for forever, right? They may even be manipulated now by record labels, if we can believe blind items about Olivia Rodrigo, right?
Right.
He even cites Olivia Rodrigo as like, well, isn't this the most popular thing? Like, why is that the most popular thing? You believe that's the most popular thing? Well, maybe that's not the most popular thing either.
Billboard's formula is Billboard's formula. That just because he doesn't agree with what that is.
And I think he wrote an update later that acknowledges that various manipulation from record labels that's been going on a long time. So what is organic? What is natural? The very thing that you're defending. He admits later in a later clarification that the Billboard charts are not sacrosanct.
Yeah, it's
well,
always
if they're not, then what are you defending? What difference does it make?
It's always been flawed, but then he's trying to say, like, oh, BTS fans, they've somehow done something unique that is manipulation. It's like, I don't even think if it's just fans buying stuff, mass streaming, I don't think that's manipulation. That's just fans.
I don't agree that's manipulation either.
Fans being active. Like, okay, one person doesn't need to buy 10 versions of Butter.
His argument, I think, that he wants a chart that's pure and measures like the breadth of popularity of something. And my argument would be that the billboards have never done that.
Right.
They've always been prone to manipulation by, if not fans, then by record labels, which I would argue is even worse and even less representative of what's popular. And furthermore, his argument that breadth as opposed to intensity is a better measurement of quote unquote popularity, I would argue is flawed in itself. So basically he's saying like this, okay, I come from a political background, so let me make an analogy with politics. In politics, when you want to win an election, most people will just say, well, I want the majority of people to prefer me as a candidate, right? Mm-hmm. They'll say, if 51% of the people in a country prefer me as a candidate, then I'll win. And that's what I'm going for. That's one way to do it. That would be seeking breadth of popularity, wide popularity, right? But there's another totally legitimate way to win an election, to be popular, which is intensity, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we know that not everyone who can vote votes. So sometimes you're not the preferred choice of 51% of the population. You're the preferred choice of 42% of the population, right? But if the intensity of that 42% is much higher for you, they actually come out and vote for you. And then you beat the guy who has 58% popularity, right?
Right.
So maybe 58% of people prefer in a very, non-committal way the other guy.
Like a passive way.
Right? But 42% prefer you with a red hot intensity and they all come out and vote. Well, you're going to win by a landslide. Because the commitment to the other guy, even though on the surface it says 58%, it's a shallow commitment. They didn't all come out to vote.
Right.
They didn't do what it took. If you didn't actually come out to vote, what did it count for? Yeah, sure, you can say 58% of the population prefers me. What does it mean, though? Is that really being more popular? It didn't win you the election. I'm the president because my 42% of the people, they all came out, every single one of them, and some of them even voted twice. I know that's illegal, but like in the analogy in like Army's case, right? Like you do everything you can, right? So intensity is also another valid measure of popularity, in my opinion, right? And if you're in the political field, it's a valid way to measure how popular a person is. And it's a valid thing to talk about. And that's what, obviously, that's what Army has over other people. They have a massive intensity advantage. And not only do they all come out and vote, they do everything they can to turn other people out. So seeming minority of the population can have an outsized impact. And someone might say, well, that's not an accurate representation of popularity. Okay, numbers-wise, if every single person just had a shallow one-time vote, yeah, that's true. But is that real life? Right?
Billboard isn't measuring like everybody vote once.
Right.
Have one vote for a song.
Right. It's not like a Twitter poll that you have to answer in something. It's like, well, I guess I prefer Justin Bieber. But would you have come out to a Justin Bieber concert? Would you have bought his stuff twice, 3 times, 4 times? Right? So you can say that maybe BTS isn't as popular as Justin Bieber. I bet you they're not, by the way. Like if you just ask, if you forced all of America to answer, do you prefer Justin Bieber or BTS? Probably more people would say Justin Bieber, just because he's American and he's more famous, right? Mm-hmm. But would they actually buy his stuff? Would they actually come to his concerts? Would they, vote for him constantly? No, their dedication to him is very surface level, right?
Right, and you could see when they had tour sales, like how that turned out.
He had really, really, really disappointing tour sales. So the idea that this very surface level popularity or vote is the only thing that matters, in the political sciences, we would argue with you that that's totally wrong. Because we're only concerned with functionally what's important, right? And functionally what's important is who's going to win the election. And when we talk about who's going to win the election, we don't just talk about, well, on the surface, what's the preference breakdown? Because that's only one aspect of who's going to win the election. Ultimately, who's going to win the election, yes, does have to do with, the surface breakdown, right? But also the intensity of that support. And if the intensity of your fan base, your support, totally blows away the other people, then you will probably win that election. And at the end of the day, we're most concerned with who's going to win the election. That is when the rubber meets the road. That's popularity in the political sciences. Who actually wins elections? Well, it's pretty clear to me that BTS wins these elections. And you can say, well, it's only because their supporters are so intense. That's part of the formula of why people win elections. If the billboard is capturing intensity, it's not flawed to capture intensity. It actually is working correctly because that is a component of popularity.
And what Army has, they not only have intensity, so meaning like every person is paying more attention to, oh, here's what we need to do to get on BTS higher on the charts. Not only do they have intensity, but they have organization. So they have everybody informing everybody else of what they need to do. But then it's like this writer is making that out to be a manipulation, but it's not manipulating anything if you're just communicating better with all the other fans. It's like saying MLK, his activism wasn't organic because he was organizing marches, and then he made it so easy for people to just show up to his marches instead of every person individually doing whatever they were going to do for civil rights, you know?
Yeah, and another thing that was funny to me is when he said that, oh, are we sure that this is organic? What are you talking about? If anything, BTS popularity is the most organic because they had no benefit of established record labels doing their publicity or anything, right? It had to be word of mouth. It had to be through YouTube. It had to be fan to fan to fan, right? How is that not organic? That's way more organic than Olivia Rodrigo or Ariana Grande or even Justin Bieber, right? They all had massive support from American record labels to push them higher, right? And then for him to even say something, he even wrote something like, "Do they even get radio play?" It's like, how long have you been in this industry? It almost sounds like you're dumb if you you realize that payola exists, right?
He's
you
naive,
realize that what is played on the radio has a large payola component to it.
Yeah, a lot of that is already corrupted.
Yeah,
what's played on the radio. So don't use that as some kind of standard.
Radio is one of the least organic indicators of popularity out there. Radio play is determined almost entirely by who's paying for radio play.
And I think it's a huge difference when you have, whatever the BTS Army groups are. It's like, oh, US BTS Army or this and that group of just fans versus like wealthy record labels and all the power they have and all the connections they have. It's like fans doing anything isn't manipulation. A record label doing all sorts of things, and it's like they might be bribing people, they might be doing shady things, they might be doing payola. Like all of that stuff is factored into what record labels are doing. It's like fans have no power to do any of that. All they can do is just like, oh, let me just keep streaming, let me keep buying it. So it's like to lump that all together, like that's all manipulation. It's like that just didn't seem fair to me. That's just like fans doing fan stuff isn't manipulation. And yeah, I agree that there's a lot of artists that are propped up. Like you can't really prove it, but it just seems like, why is this person suddenly at the top? But you know that they have a lot of support, and you see like advertising everywhere, and it's like, okay, who knows how this is all working? Nobody is transparent 100% about how this music is promoted, so it's hard to say. All you can just have is like accusations and blind items. But it seemed that after a few days of getting a lot of backlash, this writer, he released an update where he like sort of took it back. He still was criticizing BTS. He was like, Butter isn't that good of a song, and it's like he just acknowledged like, okay, the system was broken to begin with. It's nothing new with BTS. So he's like, yeah, chart manipulation happens whether it's fans or record labels. So I mean, he like somewhat acknowledged points people made, but not really. I think he still kind of thinks what he thinks. And I don't know if he updated that because he was really rethinking anything, or if he just got so much backlash, he was like, I better respond so that Army doesn't like, I don't stay on their list forever, All right, so Festa is the annual celebration of BTS's debut, which was June 13th, 2013. And each year around this time, BTS has some fun content that they release. They also have fan concerts, which are called Muster, that happen around this time as well. And we're recording this before that, so we've seen all of the Festa content that came out. A lot of it was really good. They had a number of unreleased choreography videos and photos. I'm not intending to recap everything, but there was a couple of things that I did want to highlight. RM released a solo song called Bicycle. It's a pretty nice song. I think it's very in line with the songs on B, so I don't know if it was like developed in relation to that, or if it was just, a song that he came up with just in the same time frame because of COVID. He's probably taking a lot of bike rides. And yeah, I thought it was a really nice song, a chill song and a healing song. but it was also a little bit lonely in a way. Like you're by yourself on your bicycle, but you're still thinking about things. And I'm glad that he released it. And I feel like his voice is really nice on it. And it's good that we're hearing him sing more. So that's not too common for rappers. But yeah, I think the song was either developed for B or a mixtape, or it just didn't fit in anywhere else. So I think that's what happens with some Festa content. It's just like songs that don't fit into anywhere else. And so they'll use it for that.
I liked it. It's good.
Yeah, it's a pleasant song.
Yeah.
Another fun thing they released was a Festa exam. And it was basically a quiz similar to something you take at school. It had a lot of questions having to do with BTS and Army. Some of the questions were pretty hard. Like, I consider myself Army, but a lot of these were asking for specific dates, or like someone said this, and it's like you had to know exactly the context of whatever happened. So it was like surprisingly hard. And I just thought it was pretty funny because they had a video where BTS members took this quiz also, and it's like some of them did well, others didn't do so well. I thought it was funny that one question was, what is Jin's shoulder width? And you had to pick from the 5 multiple choice. And it's like, first of all, even if I knew it, I probably wouldn't remember. And second, it's like in centimeters, so I only remember things in inches. So that makes that kind of a hard question. I don't think even Jin got that right. Like, he doesn't remember his like exact shoulder width. And then there was another question, some other questions about V specifically. It's like, which word is not a word in Tay-Tay language? And then another question was about, when did I Purple You start? When did that phrase start? And it's like, he's the one who coined that, and I don't think he got that question right. Or the other question, even though it was about him, it's like, oh, who remembers all of these things? I mean, I'm sure there's some Army out there that got like 100% right, but I think the best scores out of BTS was like 82.5, which that sounds pretty good for an exam like this. The one question that I thought I would have no issue with, but then it was still wrong, was like, how many remixes of Dynamite are there? And then I was like, oh, well, there's 11. There's 11 versions of it. And obviously that was not listening closely to the question, because they're asking how many remixes, because I think it said on the answer key that the answer was 10. It's not 11. 11 is like the total number that there were, but I guess they're not all remixes, because I don't think the instrumental counts as a remix. But if you remember, it's like the original instrumental, the 4 daytime versions, the 4 nighttime versions, and then the holiday version. So I think people might get that wrong because they would forget about the holiday one, but I got it wrong anyway. But that's like, all I know is there was 11 versions of Dynamite. So yeah, I would be pretty impressed if anybody got a good score if they tried to take this for real. I just looked at it and I was like, okay, I don't know some of these, so I'm not even going to try, but it seemed like a pretty fun activity. They also released a performance video called BTS Room Live, and they sang a medley of songs. It was 7 songs total. I think it was 1 from each album. So they sang Like, and then Look Here, Save Me, and then Outro Wings, which is one of the best songs ever for ending a concert. I know they have to switch it each time, but I think Outro Wings is like one of the best songs for something that's ending. And then I know the concert we went to, Microcosmos, was the last song, which is like a very similar style of song, but I do think Outro Wings is like such a good one for, it's like you ended on a hopeful note, and it just sounds like such a good closing song. They did Pied Piper, and then Ugh. When they sang this at Map of the Soul 1, if you remember, they had that boxing theme, and then the rappers got kind of like overzealous, pushing each other in the spirit of the song. But this time they sang it here in this performance room. It was like, oh, I'm gonna go shove you now, and it was more funny instead. Like this is when we're supposed to fight, so let me come over to you. So it was pretty funny, because I think they realized, like, in the concert before, it was like, oh, we kind of took it too far. Everybody was shoving everybody. And then the last song was Telepathy, which I love that song. It's funny because they released teaser pictures of this video, BTS Room Live, and like everybody guessed. I was like, oh, that looks like they're singing Telepathy. And I don't know how we could all tell that, but I guessed that too. It's like just the way they were standing around. I don't know. It just looked like that's what they're singing. So that was pretty cool that we all had that intuition. They were all wearing clothes that had kind of a green and black and white and some denim styling. And Jin's blazer, it looked like a blazer that I have, except his probably costs 10 times more what mine costs. But I have a blazer that's just like that. It's like a green and black plaid blazer. So I was like, oh, cool. Maybe I could be Jin for Halloween. So they sang like 7 songs from all their different albums, and I thought it was just a really good example of what a good discography they have, and they have like so much range. There's like many kinds of songs here. I thought this was a really good video, and they just did a medley. It was just like a taste of things, and I think that they chose these particular songs, and that probably means they're not going to be part of Muster, and they're not going to be part of whenever the concert is back on, I would think, because if they used it here, although maybe UGG and Telepathy would still be part of a in-person concert, but I think they use these 7 songs because they're not going to be sang at Muster. And then the latest thing they posted was Army Corner Store, which was their yearly Festa 1-hour gathering that they post, and it's always very introspective, a lot of BTS talking about each other and the group and looking back on previous years. So it's very good. I won't recap it, but it gives you a lot of good information and insight on what they think about things. And some of their answers were even like kind of unexpected. I mean, we're used to hearing them talk about certain things, and it's like you almost know what they're about to say, but some of the answers that they said in this interview, it was like, wait, what? Are you sure? Like for a couple of answers, RM seems pretty cynical. I don't know if somebody like betrayed him. There's a word association part at the beginning where they said, well, they give a word and then you say whatever your response is to that. And then he said, for the word promise, he said futile but still worth a try. And it's like, whoa, did somebody like break a promise to him and like burned him? And then there's another question, what don't you believe in anymore? And he said the idea that people are inherently good. And I was like, whoa, that is like really, I don't know, controversial, but that's a really bold statement to make there, because I think most people believe that, oh, people are, you're inherently good. You start out good. Everybody does. And then whatever changes you along the way, it's because of whatever happened in your life. But wow, I don't know what happened to him that he doesn't believe that people are inherently good. So whatever bad thing happened, hopefully we'll find out what that is. And I'm sure Army will have something to say about it if they find out like some person out there, like let's say it's a person in the music industry, they somehow betrayed RM, like that person is going to hear about it from Army. And then there was a couple other questions. What do you believe in? And most of them answered themselves. They believe in themselves or they believe in Army. But V said aliens. So that's very, very insightful. It's like, okay, he believes in aliens. You know what? I believe in aliens too. It's like, if the universe is infinite, what are the chances that life develops somewhere else and that they're advanced enough to be walking around just like humans? So, I mean, I don't think that's that crazy, but I just thought it was a funny answer for V for that question. And then the question of, what don't you believe in? J-Hope said ghosts. He's like, you know what? I just don't believe in ghosts. And I don't think I do either. I don't think there's like supernatural things that happen. There's unexplained things, but I don't know if people exist in a plane that's in between. You know what I mean? So I could see why he might say that. And there's also the fact that all these like ghost hunters and like TV shows like that, it's like, I'm pretty sure that's all fake. There's not actual ghosts haunting these places. It's just a lot of like exaggerated, oh, I heard a sound, or this video footage that's really blurry and you can't really see anything. It's like, I'm interpreting that as a ghost. Maybe if I witnessed it in person, I might think differently, but I agree with J-Hope there. Later on during Army Corner Store, they were talking about a lot of the hate that they got from 2015 to 2017. And I guess that's when they were just starting to get a lot bigger and be present in American music. And they got a lot of hate messages. Now, I wasn't Army in that time, so it's hard to understand fully the context of what happened there and what they went through, but clearly it's like they were very affected by all that and all the like sudden attention. And we definitely know after the fact that they were struggling and they considered disbanding even though they didn't get into a lot of details about that. I think they've talked about it more like in the documentaries, but it's good that they faced it and then they went through it all together, and now they're better. They've grown from that. And hopefully they aren't as affected by negative comments out there. They could just kind of like take it in stride and not let it bother them so much. And there's a lot of antis out there, like other fandoms, that they question this whole, oh, BTS had it tough when they were coming up. Like they think it's made up or something, or that Army has exaggerated what happened there. I don't think that's true at all. I think that's just a way to kind of discredit the struggles that BTS had to go through. Definitely it affected them. And then towards the end of it, they were talking about their wish list. They all had some very nice wishes, and mostly they wanted to be able to perform for Army again, as well as wishing everybody to be healthy and happy and to see the end of coronavirus. It's like, okay, we've been dealing with this long enough. I'm sure they're so done with it. They just want to move on and go back to performing and doing what they love. I share that wish too. To close it out, they had all brought some items to reminisce from earlier years. It was very interesting, like the things they brought that signified certain times and, you know, previous concerts and previous moments. Things that even Army would know what it's from. It's like, oh, that was from Bon Voyage, or that was from this certain concert, or this Run BTS episode. And even Jimin was saying his items that he brought were a picture of a leather jacket that J-Hope gave him that he wore pretty often. And it's even, I remember that because it's like he wore that in like so many videos, and then he wore that most memorably in the Jungkook's Tokyo GCF video when they were at Disneyland. He still has the ticket for the amusement park they all went to before their debut. I was like, oh wow, that is going back. And it is pretty amazing that this group has been together for 8 years and they've achieved so much success. So there was a teaser for this video, and it was like, oh, okay, it's time to talk about this topic. And then they made it sound really ominous, like they were going to talk about disbanding or they were going to talk about enlistment. And I guess that was just being clickbait because they didn't talk about either of those things. When RM said that, it was really about when they were dealing with the hate 2015 to 2017. So that's what that was about. But I do notice that they are continuing to emphasize, you know, all 7 members staying together. Even in the future, that's what they're looking at. They hope to stay as a group always. So I think it was very successful Festa. I think there's a lot of great content there, and looking forward to Muster, the Sawuzu theme, see how that works out, and hopefully you'll find a stream to watch or have bought it and can enjoy the concert as well. That's about it. Happy Festa, happy 8 years with BTS. Thank you to our guest, Morgan. You can find BTS Happy Hour on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other podcast platforms. New episodes weekly. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Follow BTS Happy Hour on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also go to the website at btshappyhour.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional content. Until next time, this has been BTS Happy Hour. Thanks for listening, and remember, make every hour a happy one.